this most recent report, which I've lead authored, focuses on the same sorts of questions and uses the same sorts of data from the National Pupil Database in order to understand what's the size of the group of pupils with English as an additional language, what's the composition of that group, so who's really in that group, and what is their academic achievement? Are there any gaps relative to monolingual English-speaking pupils? My motivation to research this topic is really around a broader interest in equity issues in general. So really understanding what are the sorts of vulnerability and what are the sorts of risk for pupils not to be able to meet their potential, and what do we do about that in an education system. One particularly important finding is just around the growth of the group of pupils who speak English as an additional language relative to the broader population of pupils in England. And so not only that this is a growing group, not only that this is a greater proportion of the population, which in the 2023 data was over 20%, but also that this is a more spread out population of pupils. So there are more schools, more local authorities who need to consider their needs. And that's a particularly important consideration for people in schools. A really particularly important finding from this research was the importance of when a pupil joins the school system in England. And what's really important there is that we know how long it takes to gain fluency in the English language. We know that on average it takes 6 years. And if a pupil enters in reception, then they're likely to be able to, as it were, catch up with their peers by the end of primary school in Key Stage 2. If they enter later than reception, it's quite likely that there will be gaps by the end of primary school if their needs are not addressed in a way that helps to close those. And the same is true in secondary schools. Practical recommendations arising out of these findings for teachers and for schools really concern knowing and being able to meet the needs in the school. So being very aware that actually having English as an additional language status doesn't tell you much, and that there is a need to assess in a rigorous way what a pupil's English language proficiency is. And then meeting those needs requires having appropriate support and appropriate professional development to do so. So I think in terms of setting school priorities, understanding where sort of focuses in professional development, it's important to consider whether teachers need support that maybe they haven't had yet in order to meet needs of a potentially changing population in the school. Our recommendation for policymakers arising from this research really concerns the 6 years that we know, based on the evidence, it takes for pupils who speak English as an additional language to gain English language proficiency. And the issue there is around pupils needing support for the 6 years, schools and teachers needing support in order to be able to give those pupils what they need, and consequently funding needing to be there to support them in that endeavor. Also, we know very well that because of the diversity of this group, having a flag for English as an additional language isn't enough to tell us who needs that support for how long. So what this really means is that we need assessment of English language proficiency to be able to appropriately target support and to target funding where it's needed.